All right, welcome back. We're going to get into all this stuff. Pete Carmichael got let go as the offensive coordinator. The Saints are interviewing people for that job. There's a lot to dig into. Mickey Loomis talked today and enraged half the fan base, and it's.
I got my note cards ready, just like Mickey Loomis.
No, come on, man! Don't do that. Oh no, not the note card. Oh man, I'm working off a computer screen because it's 2024. Brooke's back there not talking. Hey Brooke, how you doing? Brandon's here, Edwin's here. We're gonna get into the show. We're presented by PJ's Coffee, and if you need a car, check out my guy Matt Bowers, the world's greatest car dealer. I don't know if there's an award for it. Yeah, Galaxy, but whatever. I'll give him the Galaxy Award, whatever it is. Make sure you check him out. He's got the best cars, best prices, best customer care. The veterans Ford dealership just redone is beautiful. It's immaculate. They got some great Mustang 5.0s out front. I go check one out. All right, let's hit these ads. The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. Are you looking for the perfect engagement ring? Look no further than Friend & Company Fine Jewelers' new engagement salon. This new area houses a wide selection of engagement rings to choose from in all cuts, sizes, and colors. Their experienced staff offer 5-star customer care to help you find the perfect ring to express your love. Visit their new engagement salon today. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers, the perfect ring for the perfect moment and also for the perfect person. 7713 Maple Street between Adams and Burdett Street. 504-866-5433. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers. Check them out at friendandcompany.com. Hard Hide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. All right, let's get into the show. All right, let's get into our lead topic, presented by Friend & Company Fine Jewelers, official jewelers of the New Orleans Saints. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers is excited to announce the opening of their engagement salon. Friend & Company has a wide selection of engagement rings to choose from. And while you're there, check out their fleur-de-lis earrings and necklace that Brooke is usually wearing, and that's on your screen right now. They're specially priced for our NOF audience. All right, so the big news of the week, Pete Carmichael was let go after 18 years in the organization, 15 years as the offensive coordinator. Feels like there's a lot of reasons to make this move, but like maybe what were the one or two that kind of stood out to you that felt like, okay, it was time for change?
Well, I mean, the offense had grown stale. I mean, it was too obvious. I think what he did this year might have been enough to save his job in a single season. Everything we complained about or pointed out as the season went on, I think they did get better at by the end of the season. Motion, more motion. Play action, more play action. Red zone, started killing it in the red zone. But it was just, and look, we've heard, I've written it a couple times. We heard Mickey Loomis say it again today. It's that definition of insanity definition that, like, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it was the third year in a row where the offense took too long to come together, and there were too many things they didn't do well enough, too many things they didn't do modern enough, too many things that didn't get their playmakers in advantageous situations. And as we said the other night, I think their run game is the biggest disappointment of all. They need somebody to come up with a new approach to that.
I think it's a handful of things, man. Like it's everything you said. The run game drove me nuts. All the stuff you said. They just didn't. It feels like other offenses when you watch them, like they feature players and they do things to get guys the ball. Like Puka Nacua is going to get the ball in space where he can run and make guys miss and be special after the catch. You're going to showcase Stephon Diggs. You're going to showcase Tyreek Hill. Like the Saints have some really, really good playmakers, and they don't do enough to feature those guys. They don't put them in spots where it's like, we're going to showcase them. And I don't think they do enough with their route concepts to where like you're creating space and guys are getting open to make plays. Like it's a lot of tight window throws. It's a lot of routes going to the same place on the field. It just felt like, they did start to get there, but like the place that they got, like, why do you have to get there? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you should be there starting. Like your starter kit of offense, when you open up the toolbox and that top row, you shouldn't even have to lift it up to get to the bottom one. It should be right in the middle. Play action, motion, getting the ball to your playmakers, run after catch. doing things where your passing game and the run game looks the same, and it's not two different things. Like, but it's like you're pulling it up and you're looking under, and it's like, man, where is it? And it's just kind of crazy that's where they're at. So it just felt like, to me, it ran its course. I mean, it's no disrespect to Pete Carmichael. Like, we covered Pete for a long time. Like, there's a handful of things that I've like heard about him that he figured out when Sean was here that were just crazy. And the one that always comes to my forefront of mind when I think about him, and I think it was a 16 game. I believe it was 16. They were playing the Bills, but anyhow, it was like week 9 of the season or something like that. And they had seen a tackle overplay to where it moved the defensive end over when you went tackle over, and it created this mismatch on the left side of the line. And they ran the ball off these tackle over plays 3 times in the game, and it was like they got like 150 yards off these 3 runs. And like, I'm asking people how they found it, and they're like, man, like Pete was up there and it was like 3 a.m. one night, and he found this play from 8 weeks ago and he brought it back and we ran it and it just worked. And it's just like, that was the stuff Pete was doing. Like, a lot of that special sauce, a lot of those special wrinkles, that was stuff Pete was finding, doing work for Sean. And I mean, he was great in that role. It's kind of unfortunate that like he's not going to be around doing that kind of stuff, but like it makes sense. It's time to move on. But at the same time, I don't think he should be diminished by what's happened the last 2 years.
It's funny. Either I'm going to give Twitter credit or I just did a good job of staying off Twitter. But a year ago when they kept Pete Carmichael, I once a year Twitter makes me like go on a rant. And the thing that bothered me last year was so many people were saying he proved that he had nothing to do with the Peyton and Breeze era last year. And I'm like, that's what bothered me. I can't say enough good things about what Pete Carmichael did, but yeah, 18 years is a long time. And we could talk about a lot of offensive coordinators who were probably thriving around the time of 2009, 2011 that aren't the top minds in the game right now. But it doesn't mean that he wasn't then and that he wasn't for a long time. I mean, it was like 2006 through 2017. What is that? For 12 years, they were a top 6 offense every year for those 12 years, and they were first or second in almost all of them. He did really good things, and it was sophisticated, and it was innovative. But yeah, I mean, look, there's time for a change in just about every player and coach in the NFL. Nobody lasts 18 years, and there's probably a good reason. It's obvious that it's time for something fresh with this.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the thing is when Pete was working under Sean kind of brought everything to those guys, and they weren't having to put together the script, design the like all that stuff. It was kind of like, this is what I want, and like assemble it, and that's what they would do. And he was good at that. He got put in the role that maybe, I think fairly, we had 2 years to evaluate it. It's not disparaging the man or anything. Like, I think he was just better at the other thing, and then you got him in this role, and he wasn't great at it. And I think that's okay. But yeah, they started their search. They're starting to interview people. Dan Pitcher, Shane Waldron, and Zach Robinson, McVay.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like,
it's not even the McVay, Shanahan, McDaniel, Zach Taylor tree. Zach Taylor it is a little bit, but it's direct McVay ties. This is where they're starting. I imagine these are 3 of a bunch of coaches, but it's exactly what we wanted. I mean, it's exactly what they need. And funny enough, I think this would be true no matter what happened to their team this season. But the fact that just 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, they got destroyed by this McVay offense that is still killing it. If anything, these guys can come in and tell their defense why it was so easy to chew them apart. They need ideas from this offensive philosophy.
Yeah, I think we'll see a couple of people that touch the Shanahan thing once they can start interviewing playoff candidates.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see some of that. There's a couple guys in the college ranks that I think would probably make sense to look at. The Washington OC that's now at Alabama, the Michigan OC. I think these are people that could draw some interest in and make sense to look at them a little bit. I feel fairly like Greg Olson was a name that has been floated out there. I do not believe that Greg Olson is part of this search in any form or fashion now or later. I would confidently say that he is not going to be the Saints offensive coordinator. I don't think he's going to be considered for the job. So that's one there. But I like where they're starting to look. Like we were just saying the other day, like anyone in McVay is like that's all the same tree. Yep. So Shanahan comes off of that too. So that's a great place to be. I mean, that's the offense that's kind of revolutionized the league, and the fact that they want to kind of draw from that. You got a nice pool of candidates because that thing's touching like 12 teams right now. So
well, look,
it's a good place to be.
You said they're not interviewing anyone from the 49ers yet, but the Packers, that also comes from that tree. The Texans, that also comes from that tree. I think they'll probably pluck some assistance from there. The college guys we might not even hear of. You don't have to as publicly ask for permission with the college guys because of recruiting. Sometimes they like to keep that quiet. The thing I like best about this list, though, is even if they don't end up with Dan Pitcher, Zach Robinson, or Shane Waldron, it's such a good starting place. It's just a reminder, like, we worried in theory, what kind of candidates will you get? Is this a job people want? Would they rather have a different job? If DA's on the hot seat, will someone come here? This is a good sign that this is where it starts, and other people will be compared to this level of candidate. They're gonna find there are good candidates available for this job.
I was talking to another front office. I don't want to say who. I was talking to somebody in the league today, just kind of about the perception of the Saints, and just kind of like that question right there. Like, hey, like, people are kind of talking about like DA being on the hot seat or whatever, and he's like, man, that is a place where you go, and like, if you have a family and stuff, and you have kids, and you're worried about being in the same place for a while, like, you want to go there because you know that they're gonna just do it in the way, like, it's the Roonies. Like, they're gonna sit there, they're gonna be patient, they're gonna let it play out. Like, you don't have to worry the same type of way. He's like, you know, I know a lot of people like talk about DA or whatever. He's like, it doesn't sound like, you know, in league circles that DA's in any harm. So, you know, but the thing is they, yeah, man, like, they stand by their people. And
Carmichael was just here for 18 years.
There's 32 of these jobs. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. Everyone's always like, well, would they want it? I mean, I think if you're an OC candidate, you're looking at it and you're like, they have really good weapons.
Yeah.
Like, I can work with these people. I can make this work. I can put it together. There's only so many of these, though. Like, if you're Zach Robinson, like, why wouldn't you take the job? Okay, if you come here and DA gets fired and you lose your job, you've at least elevated to an OC, and like, you're in that next batch of conversations, and nobody's holding that against you if you're doing a competent job. So if you fail at it,
and if you're good at your job, then you save DA's job.
Correct. So it's like, I don't think it's. I just don't think the perception is the same.
Here's the other thing too that we haven't mentioned that just popped on my mind. The whole league is hiring offensive-minded head coaches. If you are an offensive coordinator, you want to be the OC for a Dennis Allen. This is your show. Like, it's not like going to be Zach Taylor's offensive coordinator, or, you know, Matt LaFleur's offensive coordinator, or Mike McDaniel's offensive coordinator, where you're not going to get the credit for doing it. You come here, you get to put your stamp on the offense.
The thing that I think they got to kind of try to figure out is that, like, a handful of these guys have never called plays before, and that's going to be the most interesting thing, is like, how do you figure out, like, who's going to be the good play caller as a first-time play caller? And some people are, some people aren't. You know, I think there's a handful of guys that did it for the first time that you go back and look, and it took them a little bit of time to find that groove. Like, they don't have a lot of time to figure that out. So that's the challenge, is figuring out who can kind of, if you go with one of these guys, how you cut it out. That learning curve is going to be fascinating. And all these guys are interesting to me for different reasons. Zach Robinson, if you read about him, he was working at PFF. And he got a job with the Rams out of PFF.
There's hope for you yet, Nick.
Yeah, maybe we'll get in the league.
Are you on the list again? Can you confirm or deny?
I got nothing to do with that. But yeah, anyways, the other moves, they parted ways with Kodi Burns and Bob Bicknell, and then they let Joel Thomas take a job with the Giants. I thought it was interesting today that Mickey said that it's possible there might be other moves. Like, he wasn't anticipating anything one way or the other. Yeah, so maybe if they hire the OC and he says, like, I have to have this guy, like, you're probably going to accommodate some of that stuff. So that's going to be fascinating. You know, these moves, I don't think any of them are, like, I think Joel Thomas is good at his job. He just kind of went somewhere else. Okay. You know, Kodi Burns, the kind of thing I got is that, you know, maybe there was I think people liked him in that room, but it was just kind of a, you know, kind of just that transition from college to pro can be hard for people, just like managing people or whatever. So, and honestly, like, Bicknell, I don't know, we never really interacted with him, so I don't have a lot of thoughts on that.
Well, and he wasn't a position coach too, so he was supposed to be an ideas guy for an offense that needed new ideas. So
yeah,
and they've kind of created that role a few years ago. And is he already the third guy who had it? Jim Chaney?
Yeah,
am I making up that there was somebody else too?
Somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of having a senior offensive assistant idea guy in the building, but obviously that didn't bear fruit. The two most interesting names of people who haven't been let go to me are obviously Doug Marrone and Ronald Curry, who I think are two highly respected guys in NFL circles. And I have a feeling the Saints haven't let them go yet because they could be attractive to some of these people building a staff. They might want Ronald Curry and Doug Marrone on their staff, but I do think if somebody new came in and said, no, I have a quarterbacks coach I swear by, I have an offensive line coach I swear by, I am an offensive line coach, that could change things. But I think the Saints want to maintain the rights to those guys because they could be sales points for a coach that comes here.
Yeah, and then the other kind of things that just kind of going on with the team. Kai Harley interviewed with the Panthers earlier this week. Jeff Ireland interviewed with the Chargers today. I heard that the Ireland interview actually went pretty well. It's probably going to be about a week before they make a decision on that. So that's kind of interesting. So a couple things to keep an eye out on. All right, time for the moment of the day, presented by New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company. When did it feel like the Saints were going to have to go a different direction with the offense this season? If you remember earlier this year, the loss after the Atlanta game in Week 12, it was kind of interesting. Alvin had kind of one of his little truth serum moments, and he said, when I start coaching, I'll tell you. And then our Brooke Kirchhoffer asked him how hard it would be for the Saints to do something different offensively that late in the season. And Alvin said, quote, "We don't have an identity as a team. We're a team that says we want to do and we don't do. We're consistently inconsistent." They were 0 for 5 in the red zone that day. I think that is kind of maybe one of the breaking points. But I mean, I think kind of for me, it was just like the whole season. Like, I don't know, the end of last season was kind of the moment for me. Like, if I'm telling you, I've said it a million times. If you like rewind these podcasts, I'm like somewhere on one of them, I said malpractice if he comes back, and he came back. And look, I'll eat that a little bit because I think he kind of figured it out later in the season. And I was on his ass like early on a lot. And he shut me up. Like, he did a lot of the things that I thought they should be doing. So I'll walk that back a little bit, but like, I still think that they should have made a change last offseason, regardless of how many teams are replacing their OC.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting question. When did it become evident? Because week 2, week 3, week 4, when was it? Like, well, the Green Bay loss in week 3, they did lose Derek Carr in that game, but oh gosh, I remember being in Houston. I'll give you an exact moment. Houston. I remember saying to you at halftime of the Houston game, like that I had a theory that everyone keeps talking about the red zone, but I think they're bad all over the field. It's just like sometimes they go 3 and out. Sometimes they stall at their own 40. Sometimes they stall at the other 40. They just made offense look so hard. That was a game where it was 20-13 was the final. Mm-hmm. And there was that long stretch of season where I'm like, they make offense look too hard. I tweeted that more this season than I ever remember. Why does it have to look so like every first down felt like an accomplishment? It was the last month of the season where that changed. But for the first, I mean, certainly by the time that Atlanta game, that was their second of 3 losses in a row. That's when it felt like rock bottom to me.
Houston, when Carr kind of went after Pete a little bit, was another one. I mean, it was just a handful of games, man, that I just felt like a lot of stuff stood out. So the one elephant in the room with Pete always, and look, this is always going to be talked about the same way, but it's wrong. Like the whole, like, Pete didn't want to come back for that first season. What really happened there is they were trying to get a different offensive coordinator then, and they were stalling him. Yeah. Like, it wasn't Pete didn't want to come back. It was just like, we want somebody else, and then we're going to see how Pete fits within this picture. And that might have been as a QB coach or being the Bob Bicknell idea guy. But they desperately wanted Liam Cohen, who was the offensive coordinator at Kentucky at the time. He came from the McVay tree. McVay came back and took him. He ended up being the OC with the Rams. And then he left the Rams to go back to Kentucky. But the Saints wanted him bad enough. They couldn't get him in for an interview, and they were still trying to make overtures to him to take the job because they wanted him that bad. So this idea of them going to the McVay tree right now is not surprising at all because that's where they wanted to be the whole time. But this idea that, like, Pete didn't want, I am very confident saying that is not the truth. Like, Pete wanted somebody else.
Right. There was something mutual there. Pete did consider using that as an opportunity. Do I want to maybe take a year off? Do I want to maybe take a step back? But I think he also read the writing on the wall. And you remember they interviewed Jay Gruden that year. They interviewed, who's the other one? Like a long-time experienced guy in the Jay Gruden class. And I think once they got to that level, I think they were excited by the Liam Cohen idea. And then once they were interviewing guys like Jay Gruden and other guys who had been in the league for 15, 20 years, they were like, we have our own guy that's been in the league for 15, 20 years. And I think they sold themselves on Pete at that point. But you're absolutely right. And last year, by the time they kept Pete, they definitely, if they didn't do full-on interviews, they did inquiries too. So each year they looked for other ideas that they thought might be upgrades, and they kind of settled on going back to Pete when they were like, well, the people now available to us aren't we don't think are better than Pete Carmichael. Right. But this is the first time they've obviously done
there was a backing off. It wasn't just all Pete, though. Like, that was like, no, I don't know. Like, that isn't really how it went. Sure. Anyways, Coming up on the show, we hear from you guys with our question of the day. We hit the highlights of Carmichael's career. We kind of already did some of that. And what's ahead for the offense? All right, let's hit these ads.
It's carnival time at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company. Our gumbo combos are back. Enjoy our hot gumbo, fries, and your choice of shrimp, catfish, soft-shell crab, or frog legs starting at $9.99 at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company.
Are you tired of renting and ready to own your dream home? Contact Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union, your trusted source for home loans. Our competitive rates and flexible terms can help make your home ownership dreams a reality. If you're a first-time home buyer or looking to refinance, our experienced lenders are here to help. Our online application process allows you to apply on your schedule. It's quick, easy, and convenient. Visit us online at jeffersonfinancial.org to learn more. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and much, much more. They are family owned and operated since 1946 and specialize in wine, spirits, gourmet food, gift baskets, catering, and tasting events. They have many locations, so they're never too far away. You can check them out in Metairie, New Orleans, Mandeville, and Baton Rouge, or if it's more convenient, you can always shop online. Whether you're a wine novice or a seasoned collector, you'll enjoy the Martin Wine and Spirit experience. All right, welcome back to the NOF studio. We talked to Mickey Loomis for an hour today, and it was different. It was different, man. Like Mickey was a little more hyped up than he normally is. Like to talk to the media, he's normally not like that. It seemed like he had a lot he wanted to say, but he still kind of didn't really say a whole lot of anything. He worked a piece of gum for a while because he had a cough.
The gum lost that battle.
Yeah. We got fans attacking us now.
We got blood on our hands?
No, I mean, I washed them before I came on the show.
Good.
He's like, it would be unseemly just to have blood dripping from your hands a little bit. So, yeah. But no, I mean, it's a wild time to be around the Saints, man. Like, it really is. Like, let's start with the note card, I guess.
Sure. He was prepared.
Yeah.
He was probably disappointed. That was like his showstopper, and it was like the fourth question. I think by the time somebody got to why did you keep DA? And he was like, well, I have the answer for you right here. And he had Chuck Noll, Tom Landry, Bill Walsh, and who am I forgetting? I think I wrote them all down here. Bill Belichick. How could I forget Bill Belichick? And he threw Peyton in there too, as guys who had bad records early on, and people were probably, impatient with them. And he said, if you believe in your coach, you stick with him. And he believes in Dennis Allen. More importantly, though, I think he said in 3 or 4 different answers at 3 or 4 different times, this was not an hour just of Mickey Loomis defending. Everything's fine here. He wasn't the meme of the dog sitting in the fire that everyone puts on the internet. He was saying things like, pretty strong things, like how he challenged the players, how he's challenging everyone in the building, how he needs to be better, and how his quote, we've gotten a little too comfortable, and so I want to make it uncomfortable around here. He said his speech is, what are we doing differently than the other 31 teams? We need to be working them harder. This is not a part-time job. If you want to be the best, you got to be working at it 24/7. So he was talking about a lot of things that slipped. He just doesn't blame all of those things on Dennis Allen, and he kind of made it clear that he didn't think Dennis Allen deserved to be the scapegoat for all this.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing about the records, like let's just talk about it because it's only really fair. Like it was a little bit, I didn't understand the point maybe, because like if you're just gonna jump by it and you're gonna go to DA's Saints tenure and just not go 4-12, 4-12, 0-4 in the first 3, then maybe don't bring up Belichick's Cleveland tenure and just go to New England and it's 5-11 and then Super Bowl champion. That's kind of the thing. The other thing that I think is kind of a little bit weird is he keeps pointing out Sean's slow start to his career, but they went to the NFC title game his first year. So I mean, I don't think that's something that should be.
Well, he said that. I mean, he said they went to the NFC title
every
game.
Time, he keeps bringing up that Sean had these hard times, and it's like, well, he started
proved
really
himself
great.
first.
Yeah,
if DA had an NFC title game under his belt, the fans would be more patient.
Yeah.
with
So
him.
I mean that was another one, and then I liked how he went 3 years for everybody on the record, and then he stopped on Bill Walsh because he went 13-3 in his 3rd year. So I mean, but look, the point is,
there was cherry picking. There was some cherry picking going on.
Yeah, but I'm also, I'm in the middle on the two extremes. The fans are F him, and Mickey's over here saying this thing that I feel is maybe a little too kind to everything. It's somewhere in the middle. They're a 500 type team. It's not the super disaster, and it's not everything's okay. There's a lot of stuff that's wrong, and there's some stuff that's right, and you kind of got to figure your way out of it. I like some of the stuff he said though about like trying to get everybody uncomfortable and all that. I thought that was a good quote. I like the acknowledgement of like, yeah, if I was in the stands, I would have booed people a little bit too. I don't feel like we found out a whole lot about the direction of the team, where they're going, what they're thinking, or anything like that though.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I challenged him on a couple of times, I think I generally understand his philosophy, and we've heard from him a lot on the record, off the record over the years. I was actually, the one thing I was most surprised is that we did not hear Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Green Bay Packers, and Houston Texans today. I thought he was going to say all those teams went 9-8, and some fans probably think their coaches should have been fired in December too, and look where they are now. Because I know that's how he believes and how he thinks is that you're always that close, and he thinks this team is just as close as the Buccaneers, the Packers, and the Texans are. But the thing that I didn't like is, look, he sold us, and he was adamant on. He didn't like the word culture, but I think he said culture. We don't need to change the culture here. When they hired Dennis Allen, like he's like, yeah, we're keeping most of our staff, we're keeping most of our players, we're keeping most of our front office because we believe in the culture here. And a lot of the stuff he was saying was, we've gotten too comfortable, we've let things slide, we've let the standard drop, and it's like, don't those two things completely conflict with each other? Like, isn't that admitting that that maintaining the status quo and stability and comfort level and continuity and all those things you value so much has been wrong, has been what you're saying has gone wrong in the last couple of years? So they need to find that balance. They really do.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably like an awareness of the whole like, we're keeping DA because of the culture, and then like he probably doesn't want to go up there and say some of the culture stuff went bad, but he clearly has. And I mean, I've heard a bunch of that. You know, beyond some of the, like, just guys don't feel like they're together. Like, there's just like a lot of stuff with it that I think does need to be a little bit better. A couple of the other highlights, like I thought it was good that he was positive about Ramczak's future, and I actually heard that Ramczak told them that he's planning to be back, so that's a good thing. And then the other thing that kind of stood out to me, and I felt like it was a non-answer but committal to like, yeah, this is a possibility. When you pressed him on Lattimore's option bonus instead of a signing bonus, he said, yeah, there's a reason we did it, but I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
And the reason they did it is because it gives them the flexibility to trade him.
Yeah.
And he didn't deny that. Like, and then I
He
believe,
actually ignored two. I asked and someone else asked, and he was halfway through his answer, but he specifically did not answer the word trade.
yeah. So, I mean, if it wasn't about a trade, he would have said, no, it's not about trading them. So that leaves the door open to some of that. But Mike has a recap of the whole thing on the website. If you want to sign up for the website, use the code NOF, 20% off your first payment, NewOrleans.Football /subscribe. You get an extra podcast every week. You get all of our insight, our analysis, our news breaking. And if you just want to watch this and you don't want to read, giving us the $9 a month helps fund us do this. So make sure you're sign up for the website for all the best content. Yeah, so you covered Pete's whole entire tenure here. So just kind of going through a handful of things. He ran the offense in 2012. The offense ranked second in the NFL that year, 410 yards per game. Third in the league in scoring, top 5 rankings in the red zone percentage, third down in first downs, 2 Pro Bowlers, Jermon Bushrod, Jari Evans, Marcus Colston, and Lance Moore each had 1,000 yards that year. The year's probably the high point, just the broad strokes.
No, the high point is the year before, but I guess 2012 he gets credit for because Sean Payton was suspended.
Yeah,
but 2011 was the gold standard of Pete Carmichael's career, because that's when Sean Payton got run into on the sideline by Jimmy Graham, breaks his leg. I think that was week 5 or week 6. And so Sean Payton can't work the sidelines for like a month. So he hands the play calling duties to Pete Carmichael while he's in the booth. And Carmichael, that very first game, Mickey mentioned it today, they beat the Colts, I think like 62-7. And they're rolling so much that Sean Payton just says, you call the plays for the rest of the season. And he did for the rest of the season. And that was the 2011 Saints, which I genuinely, unbiased, I really think they have a strong case for best single-season offense in NFL history. They still have the record for most yards of all time. I mean, that was Sproles and Jimmy Graham and Colston and and Jari Evans and Carl Nex just all at their peak. They still have the record for most yards in the season, even though we've switched to a 17-game season. Like, no team came within 600 yards of them in 17 games this year. And then they were number 2 offense in 2012. Peyton gave them the play calling duties back in 2016. They had the number 1 offense again that year. But look, I mean, all this innovation isn't just Sean Payton and nobody else was allowed to help. I mean, he's the kind of guy, if other teams wanted to hire an offensive coordinator and they would have been able to steal him away, he's the name of all these Sean McVay existence we were talking about for over a decade.
Yeah. All right. That takes us now to the Martin's question of the day. Martin's is home to a wide selection of handpicked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and more. Martin's, so much more than just wine. So the question is, as the Saints look for their offensive coordinator, what style should the Saints offense focus on? More explosive passing, run heavy, or a pragmatic approach? I mean, I think it's a little bit of you want to be able to do it all. I mean, that's really the
be
whole
good
point.
at all of it.
Yeah. Be able to throw deep. If you run the ball well, you can probably throw the ball deep. Be balanced. So yeah, be pragmatic a little bit. In the days when you can run the ball well, run the ball well. I mean, that's just kind of what it is.
I'm going to ask you my own Martin's question of the day in a second. But one point we made on the last show, I believe, if you want to go back and watch that, is, I think everybody thinks passing game right away when they think potent and high flying, and they think Sean McVay, and they think it's all about Cooper Kupp and everything like that. Especially Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel in Miami this year, and Sean McVay to an extent. Their run games are so sophisticated too, and they get the best out of their players, and that is a huge part of this too. That's why we're so excited about them. But one thing I'm curious to get your take on, because you obviously study so much tape and know what you like. What's so interesting about Sean McVay being quote unquote revolutionary, or just like being the best at this for almost a decade now, is that he also kind of just runs everything out of the same 11 personnel. And Sean Payton's strength was every different play, new personnel package coming in, 4 guys coming in, 4 guys coming out. I'm going to learn all about your defense and your weaknesses. What do you like about that? And is there a beauty in that simplicity? And could that be something that gets the most out of Derek Carr? Well,
I mean, the one thing with them actually is over the last few years, this year they got back to it, like the condensed formations and everything. Like McVay started to kind of get spread out, and he kind of lost himself a little bit in it. And then when he kind of figured it all back out, like it tightened up a little bit. And it's interesting, like he talks about kind of having like a crisis of self all the time. Like this year, like at his season-ending press conference, he was like, thank you to this team for like helping me get back to who I am and remember who I am and all that stuff. So he kind of got back to his own self. And I feel like there's kind of like a weird little parallel with DA there, because he kind of got away from being an attacking defensive coordinator this year, and they weren't doing a whole lot of disguise. And then like they kind of found their way back to it, and it was like everything fit together again. But the thing I like about what McVay does, and I think what makes it so difficult, is that everything literally looks the same. There is literally no tell. Like there aren't these personnel groups. There aren't all these different formations. It's we're going to do all these things. We're going to do them extremely well, and it's all going to look the same. And guess what? You can't cheat on anything. And I think that's kind of the beauty and the simplicity within it, is that it's just, this is what we're doing. Like this is how we're lining up and go do it.
Well, except for the word we'll never forget hearing from Dennis Allen after they just got destroyed by that team. The eye candy.
Yeah, no doubt. But like when they come out and like first get set, it's not like, oh, the Saints are in 22 and they've passed out of
Lynn Mountain's out there. They're running it.
They've passed out of it 4 times. And oh wait, 5 and 8, so like they're definitely not. So they kind of come out, they have their looks, they do it, and then they dress it up from there. Yeah. But like you can't get a beat on them like in the huddle when they first come out and set up. So I mean that's what I like about it, man. But I mean, it's kind of just, it makes everything easy. It's beautiful to watch. It's fun. It's the quarterback is just, it makes life so much easier on him. It's just, you just set everything up. You get the reads, you get the tells, you can move people out of place. You can run the ball then like to where they aren't after you move somebody, or you can throw there. It's just so much easier for the quarterback. There's like 2 or 3 things that are just kind of declared before the ball's ever in his hand. And then, okay, off you go. Like it's a different offense, but like Jared Goff is the same. Like that's not a great quarterback. And even with the Rams, like they got to the NFC title game, or they got to a Super Bowl with them. Yeah. So should have been the NFC title game. Yeah, but like,
thanks for bringing that up, Nick. Thanks for bringing the mood up in the room.
Yeah, a quarterback like that, like you put into one of these systems and you make things easier for them. Like they exceed beyond their abilities, which is kind of what the Saints need right now. Yeah. So I am excited about the opportunity.
I'll tell you one other thing. You had a really good piece earlier this week, even before we knew that they let Pete Carmichael go, about the things they need to add to this offense. You identified yards after catch as being something that has not been a strength of this offense. And both of us, when you were pointing out these stats to me, immediately thought of watching Puka Nacua in that game in the last couple games of the season, the playoff game, and obviously Cooper Kupp. That is obviously something else that these guys know how to do.
Crazy thing about Puka, I think he had 752 yards after the catch this year, led the NFL. You add up every single Saints wide receiver, and they had less than Puka as a unit.
Crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah. And look, Puka's a dog. Like, a lot of that's him, but a lot of it's the offense too. Yeah. And you go back, the Saints, I think the last time they led the league, I believe, in 15 in yards after catch, or 16, they led the league in yards after catch. They changed their offense in 17, and it's just everything kind of from that point forward was like you're throwing into tight spots because that's where you're attacking. And they kind of just never got back to going to where they were putting guys in position to succeed. But it also has to do with some of your personnel as well. All right. Moving on from that to our money segment presented by Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union. Who would be the slam dunk hire at offensive coordinator? We obviously got the three guys that we know. And then there's people like Kubiak, who could potentially be of interest, 49ers passing game coordinator. We got Zach Robinson on the list. Just kind of going through it. Darren Bevel, the Dolphins quarterbacks coach, pass game coordinator, handful of these guys. I don't know if they're going to look at the Miami coaching tree. It kind of feels like it's Shanahan or McVay. So, I mean, like maybe Kubiak's on there. We mentioned the Houston quarterback coach. Yeah. So, I mean, is there anybody that you feel like out of the known names or kind of out of these wild card situations that would be like the slam dunk hire?
Yeah. Well, I think you made a really good point early in the show.
John Gruden.
Before we get to John Gruden, with this group, it's all these people who have a really good knowledge of those offenses. But look, Pete Carmichael is substantial proof that play calling is an art in and of itself. Getting the feel for a game, not just putting a game plan together, but knowing how to put those plays together as a game unfolds. So either somebody who's already called plays, Shane Waldron's been doing that in Seattle, not always to, he's been under fire for, is he doing it well enough there, but he now has the experience that he's learned from, or somebody that they feel confident is ready to call plays. So I think any one of these guys that has the background we're talking about, but also that wows them and they feel like this person's play calling will be a strength of theirs.
Yeah, I mean, out of the names that came out today, like I'm most excited about Pitcher and Robinson, I think. And it's just, I don't know, like they're younger, they're unknown. There's just kind of like, it's kind of like the whole like draft pick thing where it's like, it's perfect until you see the flaws. But I just kind of like the idea of doing that. And I don't know, like it's just kind of, I don't know, hit the lottery ticket like a little bit, but like it feels like Robinson's like really ready for it. Pitcher's definitely ready for it. I think Tampa wanted him last year, and then
Robinson had Ravens interview last year, Chargers interview before they went with Kellen Moore. So these guys are both not even in their first year in the cycle.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I kind of want one of them. And then just to kind of close this thing out, do you feel like John Gruden's a real candidate?
Yeah, I think they would. I think they would have shut it down by now if he wasn't.
Yeah.
I think they would have said, we don't want to be attached to all these articles that have now just become like it's a statement of fact now. John Gruden, who, is like there was a news story about his lawsuit against the league. Gruden, who is being considered for the Saints offensive coordinator job, is doing court next. Like, I mean, they have not shut that down enough. So I think they have to consider it. I think there are obviously pluses to it, which is nobody's gotten more out of Derek Carr in his decade in the league than John Gruden. And he obviously has built-in relationships with the Saints. I'm a little more excited about the guys that we're talking about on this list because John Gruden is also a guy who started being an innovator in the 90s. The same way that, we talked about Pete Carmichael, 18 years, it ran its course. So, but maybe I'm not giving John Gruden enough respect. If his name was Sean McVay, and for some reason Sean McVay was out of football for a year, I'd probably be more excited. I don't know if I have a good enough feel for what John Gruden is. We're not talking about the warts and all the other things that would come along with that. I don't know if he's a home run automatically as an offensive coordinator, even in and of itself. But obviously, he's got a pretty good track record.
Yeah, I kind of agree with all that. Appreciate you guys for tuning in with us today. And as always, saving the best for last every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's what you always do. You save the best for last. So thanks for checking us out, and we'll be back on Friday. Looking at the wrong camera.